Hey everyone, it's Robin DeGroot with TLC Truth, Love, Creativity, and today I'm making brownies. I do a lot of things that are always on my agenda, and I'm actually going to make the brownies with the recipe on the back of the Costco almond flour bag, except they're gluten-free almond flour brownies, but I'm going to change the sugar. So I'll be changing the actual regular cane sugar to the erythritol and monk fruit blend that I had used in another recipe. So I just want to show some more fun things to do while you're at home. I don't tend to really watch a lot of TV, even though I do love TV and I love movies. So I'm gonna put the wet and like the creamed ingredients in my KitchenAid here. So I have been softening this half cup of butter, which is usually the 1 stick. And some things I pre-measured, but I wanted to show you the actual packaging. A lot of things I get from Costco, because it is a great deal, and I find that when a trend starts happening, then many people do buy things from Costco. So, I mean, they start to get it like to be held by them. Oh, this is not the one. This is actually the sucrin powdered erythritol that I was telling you about. I'm going to use this at the end when I like sprinkle the powdered sugar on the brownies. But this one I have to order, usually on Amazon. So this is the Keto monk fruit sweetener. There can be other companies, but this seems to be the one that's out there right now. And the recipe, like I was saying, is on the back of the almond flour packaging from Kirkland. They made the super fine almond flour. So that actually made it great for baking. So this was the one. So I need a half cup of sugar as well. And they do say the Kirkland butter, but I just happen to have that butter. But for baking, I don't tend to be too picky about my butter. If it's not heated, then I try to get a grass-fed butter or even a raw butter if you can, which Sprouts does have, a little cheaper than I've ever seen it. I mean, it's like $14 a pound, which is pretty special. So I don't use it all the time if I get it. And I'm not too sure what freezing does to raw things, so if I couldn't freeze it, then I'm not sure if it would be worth it. So I don't use anything that much. So now I've got the butter and the sugar in the KitchenAid. I'll lock this. And you can't see my dials, but I'm gonna start on 1. Oh, it's not plugged in, sorry. Let me start with that. I have a lot of kitchen machines, as you can see, including some different coffee makers, just because I do like the Nespresso and some of the Keurig things, but I just get decaf for them. Okay, so this is piece 1, 2, go with 6. We'll get the butter and the sugar will mix. Okay, now if you don't have a KitchenAid, the wire whippers are great, and also you can cream sugar and butter just with any kind of bowl and any kind of spatula, which I do often. Sometimes I like using this when the butter is softened, and especially if I'm going to make an icing. So if I use the butter, cream cheese, this icing sugar, the powdered sugar from Sucre, and vanilla, like that's pretty awesome to use. Usually using a food processor is awesome, but same with the wire whipper, the handheld one is good too. So started with those. I'm going to add the egg. Let me just see what their ingredients. Yeah, their ingredients also, I mean, my directions are a little of what I just already know. So usually you always cream your butter and sugar first, and then you add your wet ingredients. And then this other bowl, I'll add all my dry ingredients together. So I'm going to put in the egg and then the almond milk and vanilla. Egg. I'm going to lift this again. I don't know if they really recommend always to do all that. Some of my examples are not great, like not unplugging things first. But I don't have the bowl that I just put my eggshells in the compost. I don't have the bowl that has a little lip. And if I get that, then it will help me with my baking. I won't have to lift this every time. And the other thing is the almond milk. So Kirkland does have an organic almond milk. It's a pretty good deal. I think it's $7.50 or $60 for the 6 cartons, which is great. I've always used almond milk since soy started to be a bit of a problem. Once I learned more about soy being a little too estrogen inspiring, that's not really good. So 1/4 cup of that. Okay. And now we have the vanilla, and that'll be it for all those things. So this time I have my measuring tools. Vanilla is going to be 1 teaspoon. I thought I did, yes. If they ever say a tablespoon or something of vanilla, I would be careful because when you cook it, it really doesn't taste that good. And same with too much baking soda. This recipe calls for baking powder, which can be not totally keto if it has some other tapioca flours or things in it, but I don't really mind that minute amount. I just make sure I have a baking powder that has no aluminum. So this one from Red Mill, Bob's Red Mill, is good. Okay, we can blend up some of this again. I'll have to scrape some of it off the side. It gets, once it's wetter, it doesn't pull it all in as much. So that's good. Start getting the dry ingredients together. Okay, I need my rest. There we go. I'm pretty much moving it to 6, almost 8. Okay, that's good. Now I'm gonna put together all the dry ingredients. So I'll start with the almond flour, which they usually suggest to whisk, actually. I do have a whisk, I mean, not a whisk, maybe it is, it's the sieve kind of. Well, that's especially for coconut flour, because coconut flour gets very chunky. So in this case, some recipe book creators have suggested to measure by weighing your almond flour because it can be really different just using a cup. I find that generally using the cups are okay for me and where I live, since I don't live in a super high altitude or something like that. Okay, now I have a 1/4 cup of the cacao powder, which luckily I did get at Costco at some point when they offered it, because this can be somewhat expensive if you're getting the raw one. I've gotten it at Sprouts before too, but this bag is lasting me a really long time. It doesn't always, it's not always available in a bulk place. So glad when I got it at a good price. Okay, 1/8 of a teaspoon of sea salt. I'm using this Redmond real salt, which my mom used to always get this ever since we were young, because we used to distill our own water. In the place where we lived, we had really, really hard water, so a lot of iron. Some places we've lived, we've had a lot of calcium, but basically we always distilled the drinking water and then we would add some mineral salts back in. So this one is a unrefined mineral salt. I don't know if it's a rock salt or a sea salt, but I think it's a mixture of both, actually. Mined in Utah. There we go. And I do think this one isn't quite as salty as the Himalayan salt. Sometimes it's a little too salty, so you might want to look into that. It's very mild and it has all the minerals, so that's great. Okay, 1 teaspoon baking powder. That was the Bob's Red Mill. Main thing is look for an aluminum-free, no alum. That's my qualms with antiperspirant as well. I'm always looking for these modernized deodorants that use some kind of not talc, they're using tapioca or something, because they'll soak up wetness, but they're not using aluminum. So I do believe it's good to cut down the bacteria so your odor is not there, but I don't think aluminum-based antiperspirant is very good for people. Okay, so we have most of those things. I think once everything is together, let me read that. Adding the mixture, once I've got the baking powder, blend it up, add it to the butter mixture, and then add in the chopped almonds and chocolate chips. So the chocolate chips I'm using are from Lily's, which I usually get at Whole Foods or Sprouts. And Lily's uses stevia to sweeten all their chocolate products. I'm thinking they're an awesome company. And the almonds, I didn't use almonds. I used pecans because I think there's a lot of almonds in this already. And I do like pecans, but some people put walnuts in their brownies or in banana bread. And I just learned on my food sensitivity test that walnuts are not that good for me. So anyway, I'm using the things that are good for me, and that includes pecans. So for the nuts, it was actually walnuts and Brazil nuts, which I kind of know. Macadamia nuts were on a moderation level, and I don't remember if they talked about pistachios, but pistachios don't seem to agree with me either. So now I'm going to mix all this in here. It won't be too high when I do it in this, because that'll be a bit too hard on it. Once it's mixed in with the wet stuff, then you can. It tends to get caught in the wire whip, so you have to use a bit more speed to flare it out. Okay. A little more again. Okay, great. Oops, I didn't lock it this time. Okay, I'm going to put everything back in the big ball so that I can fold in the nuts and chocolate chips. When I was young, we used a lot of carob as well, because just we had so many sensitivities. Carob is pretty good. It was actually on my okay list. But I do like cocoa and cacao, and there's a lot of benefits to it. So I'm glad to be able to use it again. I'm not a big chocolate lover though. Like I like it occasionally and in certain things and in certain amounts. I have to work my way up to dark chocolate. I tend to like lemony things and very light, creamy things. Don't always have to do with chocolate, but I do like brownies if they're very cakey. So that is my thing. Okay, so now I can put in my nuts, which I pre-chopped, and I did want to show, I usually use some kind of large, like pretty wide expanse knife, and then you can hold it like this, just like you're chopping herbs, and I do that for nuts. I don't recommend doing them in the blender because they'll get too mushy, even if some of them will be chopped. And if you have like a bottom blade, something that hits the things into the blade, that's okay. The tamper helps. I know the Ninja has some chopping type of things, or a Cuisinart food processor. That kind of works too, but I just think for a little amount, it's easy to chop them with the knife. Oh, I didn't turn my oven on. I'll do that right now. It's 350. So let's see. Okay, that will be heating. I did get the pan ready, so you'll see that in a minute, but I used parchment paper. Okay, I'll start this a little bit. Okay, that's good. And how many? Quarter cup of the dark chips. Okay. That's all ready now. I think we didn't miss anything. Now, this is my square baking pan. These are the Pyrex pans from a long time ago. And I put parchment paper in and I just cut the sides, and then I was able to cut all the edges around because it was just like one big sheet. So I'll put it in there, flatten it out a little. It just helps so much with the sticking. You don't have to oil it as much and powder it and stuff, which I do sometimes anyway. It's all right. It's easier to clean your pans and all those things this way. Oops. I don't think you waste as much when you've used an amount of parchment paper. Using my two spatulas to help each other out. One is a bamboo slotted, not quite a slotted corner, but it's got the hole in the middle. Makes it easier to mix. You should do a lot with my fingers. Sometimes I'll wear gloves for mixing. Try not to be such a bad example right now. And it just depends on, these are all for me, so I'm not too worried when I bake like that. But if you're in a family and you're with young kids, it is a good example to have them try not to use their hands too much. And basically just use good practices for all the separation of, I mean, washing your hands in between things and things like that. I definitely wash my hands in between when I'm using my fingers. So I'll end up washing my hands several times, and I didn't really want to do that in this video too. And I have very special soaps because I wash my hands so much, and I really get dry, cracked skin if I use regular soap. I have pretty mild pH balanced soaps. Okay, that's looking good. So as for it being keto, I'm pretty confident it's keto because the almond flour already takes the largest part of the carbohydrates away. Because once you don't have a grain-based flour, you have a nut flour, which has a certain amount of carbohydrates, but then it has a lot of fiber. So that will balance it out because you can subtract the fiber. And then you actually can subtract some of the sugar alcohols. So sugar alcohols are in the erythritol. That again makes it change the way that the sugars are processed in your body. And I didn't use sugar, so the larger carbohydrate amount will not be there. Cacao, again, is a, let me see what the breakdown is. For 1 tablespoon, it has 3 carbohydrates and 2 grams of fiber. 3 grams of carbohydrate, 2 grams of fiber. So in a 1/4 cup, you would have 4 tablespoons. So that would be 12 carbohydrates, but then you would subtract 8 grams of fiber. So it'll be 4 grams of carbohydrates for the net carbohydrates. Yes. And that's also going to be divided by 16. So 16 brownies, if you're not eating them all in one sitting, which sometimes is tempting. That's why I think it's good to have some keto ingredients, because then you're not beating yourself up if you had more than 1 or 2. I did want to show you a little bit of the methods for the powdered sugar. So let me show you that. This is a sieve. I have these nylon strainers, which I really like. I think this works. Let me try it on camera. So if you put it in this, it helps for the sugar to really powder as you're sprinkling it all over. So if you put it through your sieve, normally I do this like just when they're baked, but I might do a little bit more again at that time. So you can also kind of put it in a spoon and then like bounce it off the edge, and that'll lightly sprinkle it. But I think this is the easiest way. So I'll use more of that later. So this is how they look. Powdered sugar brownies. Okay, so you can put them in the oven once it's ready, which I was a little late on that. Usually you have to start your oven just before you are gonna put all your ingredients together. So anyway, that's another option, cooking and baking. I really like to bake. My hair is back in the very boring ponytail style because this is my best attempt at like a hairnet, even though my hair is curly, so I really don't have it falling out that much until I try to comb it. Then I have bunches because I'll have a lot of knots. But anyway, keep doing fun things, especially with family. And I was a Montessori teacher for 7 years, so I have a lot of these ideas because I always did them, and with my own children. So I just recommend that. Do lots of home things, fun life things. That's very Montessori. And my mother was like that. She just included me into a lot of things, and I was very interested in sewing, baking, all that stuff. So I learned it. And so anyway, keep trying to include your children, have them included, bring them in and try to get their interest, even if they don't seem to have any. Get them off the screens and go outside and do stuff if you can in your backyard. Okay, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll post some different videos next day.